Hi hobby friends, let's talk about community challenges. If you've been watching my videos lately, you'll know I've been working on a series about limited palettes. Not only are these a fantastic way to learn useful painter's color theory and expand your knowledge of what you can do with your pigments, but the results are often good enough to stand on their own. It's just a good way to paint. I've been focusing on them so intently recently because we're running a little community challenge over on my Discord server and social media. I won't drone on about it too much, but if you're interested, all you need to do is pick a palette from the 3 I've prepared, paint a mini, and share your work. The ostensible deadline is the end of September, and you can find all the things you need to know in the links in the description and the other videos from this little series. This week, I'm tackling what we've called Mystic Haze, a combination of vivid lime green and Prussian blue. As per the rules of the game, to this I've added one black and white of my choice, in this case the usual titanium white and Vallejo model colours black. If you've been watching the series so far, you'll know I chose model colour black because it's on the warmer side, which will be useful for modulating my otherwise pretty cool palette. Like last time as well, I started with a little palette test just to get a feeling for what the mixes would look like. This is a really important step if you're working with a limited palette you're unfamiliar with. Seeing at least your main colour options laid out before you will really help you plan your composition better and get results that look cohesive but dynamic and varied. The mini is primed black, and because there's a lot of skin and I want nice smooth transitions on that part, that's the first thing I hit with the airbrush, starting with a dark muted green mixed up with black and lime green and building that up into higher and higher highlights by simply adding white. There are no big surprises in the test palette this time, with most mixes travelling pretty quickly towards muddier colours. This is because of all the palettes so far, this is the one with the most pigments. If you buy non-hobby brand paints, you'll almost always find a pigment code on there that tells you exactly what chemical is being used to colour your paint. In the case of Mystic Haze, there are 6 total pigments over the 2 paints, including some white in the lime and some black in the blue. Inevitably, this will mean more complicated interactions with the colours, and more complicated interactions basically always leads to mud. And that's just fine. Although we all love a poppy colour, a little more chromatic complexity is actually what helps those saturated colours sing, and it's a great way to keep a mini grounded and solid looking. After adding a little blue into my shadows to really get them looking lush, I was more or less happy with my green skin and jumped right into what is clearly the main focus for this little sculpture, that fabulous angry bird. This is the place to let loose with those saturated tones, so no mucking about. Neat Prussian blue, a 1-to-1 mix for the next layer of feathers, and glorious lime green, which had to go on in a couple of layers for the last feathers. I had to keep the body of the bird a little more keyed down, as you can see here, just to give a little more variety and suggest a skin rather than feather texture. What we're really working with on this mini, I think, is colour weight. You can think of colour weight as being one of 2 qualities: what axis it sits on the colour wheel, and how much black or white it contains. The latter is pretty easy. Add more black and the colour gets heavier, add more white and it gets lighter. The notion of colour weight being related to hue is maybe a little harder to grasp immediately, but take a look at this yellow and red swatch. Despite the fact that these are both sitting at full saturation, wouldn't you say the yellow somehow feels lighter? And so too here with cyan versus blue. Now, this is a question of perception, so your mileage may vary somewhat, but very basically put, we can say that the RGB spokes on the colour wheel correspond to the heavier hues and the CMY to the lighter hues. Meaning all things being equal, RGB will feel more solid and CMY more ethereal, zingy or light. Okay, let's take a quick break from the theory to look at that airbrush glazing I mentioned last time. This is a technique that I at least associate with all those fantastic Spanish painters like Sergio Calvo and Jose da Vinci. It's pretty self-explanatory and easy, but it's a really fantastic way to get all the creaminess of a good airbrush blend with the richness, texture and control of brushwork. All you need to do is brush paint your main blocks for an area's shading, bearing in mind that a lot of this will stay visible, and then go over with a nicely thinned glaze of regular acrylic paint with your airbrush. That really is it. The knack is knowing which colours to use, and that is something that will alter slightly from application to application. In this case, I was going for white cloth, so my glaze colour is pure white, but more often than not you'll be looking for a mid-tone for the glaze, or even doing multiple thin passes of different shades and colours. And you can alternate brush and airbrush work if you like for even more literal depth in your paintwork. With that white still in the airbrush, I went in and added some highlights to the feathers of the bird as well, which brings us back to the theory. All that stuff about colour weight may seem a bit highbrow and abstract for mini painting, but this is one of the many secrets that will pull your scheme from fine but flat to really dynamic and interesting. We've all heard about complementary schemes and tertiary schemes and analogous schemes and all the other ways of adding lines to the colour wheel, but that ultimately is the very tip of the iceberg, and frankly, there are so many ways to slice up the wheel, I wonder if these terms are really helping anyone anyway. Colour weight, on the other hand, whether the hue and the value of the colours are equally balanced or weighted one way or the other, or maybe all just screaming at once, now there is an axis of variation that can really do some work for your mini painting. While you watch me fiddle with some dubious non-metallic metal and futz up my final details, let me take a second to say a massive thank you to the community that's aggregated around this little channel. If all goes to plan, this video is going to release the day after my birthday, and I have officially entered the main demographic of my viewership, passing through the middle of 30 and starting my 5-year journey out of decade number 3. It wasn't part of the plan to spend so much of my current life making videos about painting toys, but with the catalyst of the pandemic and, more importantly, spurred on by the amazing group of awesome people that hang around in the comments on the Discord server and at the occasional live stream, this really has become a big and very, very rewarding part of my life. Thank you so much, guys. It really means the world to me that you support the channel. Okay, enough soppy birthday blathering, let's take a look at this Chaos Cultist. Hopefully I've achieved something of a demonstration of how balancing your colour weight, in this case the lighter body of the main guy versus the heavy wings of the bird, pulling focus towards the latter, can really help make sense of a sculpt and draw out the dynamism in the mini. But what do you think? Let me know. And in case I haven't stressed it enough yet, get involved through Discord, through the hashtag, through a like and a share, and if you're feeling really generous, check out the Patreon too. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.